start coming on.
There we go. Okay.
Okay. That's what I was wondering.
All right. Are we good? We're live? All right.
Okay, let's see.
Hey, Hans, real quick. The side thing here. Just hit that off.
Oh, if you just click off of it.
Oh, okay.
Just click over here and it'll go away.
Okay. All right.
I'll jump on just a second. Tell you how many people are.
All right, I see it now. All right. Couple more minutes. We ready to roll? Do you want me to wait a minute or two here?
Christian, I think you're good to go.
All
You've
right.
got 4 people on. 265.
All right. Hello, everybody. I know the transition here on some of these live events are always fun. I'm excited to talk to you guys today about one of my favorite subjects in the whole world, resilience. And with all the things going on in the world today, resilience is something all of us need, and especially our students need to thrive. Teachers need resilience just as much, administrators, everybody needs resilience in the world today. So I want to start out by sharing with you all how I got interested in the subject matter of resilience and give you some real tools. Tell you a little bit about my own personal life, where resilience really impacted me and I needed it, was early in life. I grew up in between DC and Baltimore. My mom got married really, really young, had me and an older sister. And then my mom got a divorce. She met a man who had 6 kids. His wife had just left him with these 6 kids. Meets my mom. They have 4 more kids. So I grew up in a family of 12 kids, 5 brothers, 6 sisters. My mom was just a little bit overwhelmed with these 12 kids. My mom has something called social phobia, generalized anxiety disorder. And so it was hard for her to leave the house because of her anxiety disorder. So there wasn't a lot of food for me to eat growing up. There's usually pickles, olives, and tuna fish in my house. And so, that created a kind of unique situation. Then my dad was a code breaker at the National Security Agency, was a GS-16 code breaker with autism. You can say to my dad, 5,898 times 10,852, and he can instantly rattle that off the top of his head. So I have a mom, again, with social phobia, a dad who's autistic. As a child, I was diagnosed with ADHD, conduct disorder, severe learning disabilities. And so all of us are under one roof of a house with similar issues. And so I had to learn resilience really, really early. In my neighborhood, like 1 in 3 kids dropped out of school. I hang out with kids my own age till 5, 6 o'clock at night. But most kids my age had to go into the house pretty early. So I would end up running around with the older kids. The older kids quickly introduced me to the urban pharmaceutical industry. They would put all the drugs on me because I was a cute little white kid with curly hair and dimples. And the police would roll up on us. I was a diversion. I'd run over and talk to the police. The older kids knew, again, the police wouldn't check me because of my age. And so when I run over and talk to the police, they'd hand me football cards of the local professional football team there and take me home. And so the police never, ever checked me. So at a very early age, I became aware of social justice issues in the United States. That's probably one of the things that inspired me to become a social worker and do some of the work I'm doing right now around the world. One night I was out late at night and a car pulls up and the windows on the car slowly roll down. In the neighborhood I grew up in, you want to get down when that happens, you want to take off and run. And I heard a voice, and the voice I heard is the voice of this woman right here, who I endearingly call Mama Jackson. Let me pull this picture up here. See if you can figure out who I am in the picture there. That's my buddy Sean. I can only hang out with Sean until 5, 6 o'clock at night because Mama Jackson knew what all good moms know: who your children hang out with is going to have a tremendous impact on their future. So she sees me out there in the middle of the night. She knows what I'm out there doing. And she's like, look, Christian, don't you ever set foot on our property. I'm going to make sure you're not in any of my son's classes. And I remember thinking to myself, dang, I know I'm bad, but I'm not that bad. I can never, ever go to school with him ever again. Well, luckily, Sean started explaining to his mom the reality of my home life. And he's like, look, Mom, when I go over to Christian's house, They hardly have any pictures in their house. They have not a lot of food to eat. There's a lot of yelling, fighting. Kind of explains the dynamics of my house. And a couple days later, I'm walking to school, and Mama Jackson comes flying out of her house in this blue bathrobe. And she's like, I'll tell you what, Christian, if you'll start going to school every day, I want to see report cards. If you start answering to me, you can come eat in our house anytime you want. Now, Mama Jackson's a seriously, seriously good cook. That's the real reason why I'm in top physical condition right now. So it's pretty much an informal foster care situation. She took over and helped raise me. And a long story short, she gave me the tools to graduate from college with a 6th grade math level, a 7th grade reading and writing level. And that's pretty rare in the US. About 2% of my peers in special ed get a bachelor's degree, and 0.5%, not even 1%, get a master's degree. So statistically, I had a better chance of playing the NBA and becoming LeBron James than sharing this crazy story with you guys. And this is why I'm so passionate about resilience. I believe resilience is one of the great equalizers, where you can take a kid with my background, my challenges, and put us in a position so that we're prepared for college, that we can thrive, that we can overcome obstacles at home, at school, with peers. So I was very, very lucky to have Mama Jackson come into my life. Because of her intervention with me, my organization, Why Try, which I'll tell you a little bit more about in a few minutes, we're used in we're now close to over 30,000 schools across the country. And we've reached literally over 3 million students across the US. So we've become one of the largest social emotional life skills resilience programs in the country. And I wouldn't have had that opportunity if it wasn't for this incredible woman right here, Mama Jackson, who intervened in my life. And I've literally flown 7 million miles around the planet teaching resilience and social emotional education. Recently, a gentleman, I want to share this because of a little bit what's going on in America today. Recently, a gentleman by the name of Dr. Virgil Wood, who was one of the planners on the March on Washington with Dr. Martin Luther King. Actually, I'll show you a picture of him. That's Dr. Wood right there on the left with the horn-rimmed glasses there standing next to Dr. King. He read my book, The Resilience Breakthrough, learned what we were doing and what we've done across this country. And he said, you know, Christian, you never would have done this, had the opportunity to do this without Mama Jackson. And about 2 years ago, they gave her, Dr. Wood here, presented her with the National Rosa Parks Award, just outside of Washington, D.C. there, which was definitely one of the highlights of my life, of course, Mama Jackson's life, and it was an incredible experience. Here's a picture of Mama Jackson with Dr. Wood getting the National Rosa Parks Award. And so, you know, I have a debt to pay. I have a tremendous responsibility. You know, I was able to get these social emotional skills. You know, I remember Mama Jackson sitting out in front of my elementary school and saying, Christian, look, I can't get rid of your parents' divorce, your learning disabilities, the challenges in this neighborhood, some of the anger you're facing and frustration, but you have to take these challenges and use them as a reason to turn in your homework, to stay in school, to make better decisions. Mama Jackson started giving me what I understand now is resilience and social and emotional education. And I want to share with you, let me just pop back over here to my other screen here. I want to share with you some of the resilient skills she started to teach me. And I think these skills are really important around retention, helping kids understand why they should stay in school. The name of my organization is Why Try, because about 22 years ago, we started asking students, they were coming to school with no paper, no pencil, no notebook. Kids were just disengaged academically. Why should you try? Why should you put effort into life? And most of those students would just kind of shrug their shoulders and say, I don't know, Mr. Moore, I don't know the answer to the question, why try? You know, many of these students were standing here. Let me pull up this picture here. They were standing right next to this wall right here. All they could see is maybe failure, drugs, anger, fighting. Who cares? I can't, different family, academic problems. And when you don't know the answer to the question, why try, of course, it's very easy to check out. And sometimes it's easy to hurt yourself, hurt other people, shut down. And our goal was to show them evidence-based resilient skills, evidence-based social and emotional education to help them get on top of this wall where they can see that the answer to the question why try is if they try in life, they'll have more opportunity in life, they'll have more freedom, they'll have more self-respect. You know, I've known as I put effort into life, I was able to experience those three things, have more opportunity, freedom, self-respect. So I want to walk you through here kind of the skills to help a student see over the top of that wall. And so a professor comes to me in college. I graduated from high school at 19 and a half years old, almost 20 years old before I got a high school diploma. And I worked really hard in college. I came up with something called a no-F game plan. I figured out if you go to every class, sit on the front row, do all the homework assignments, and do enough extra credit to get to just get a D minus, that you get just as much credit with a D minus as an A plus. And I tell students, shoot for an A, but never ever fail a class. So I'm doing this no F game plan, getting through school, and this professor comes to me and says, Christian, just write down for me on a piece of paper, how did you make it this far in school with your background, with your learning disabilities, with your childhood? And so I wrote down a few principles on a piece of paper. I wrote down, I had to stop crashing. I had to realize my decisions had consequences. For example, when I was 28 years old, I had never made over $6 an hour. No one was going to pay me over $6 an hour if I kept crashing on this roller coaster. So I had to realize, again, that behavior A plus behavior B equals consequence C. That's a very important resilient skill, because if you don't understand your decisions have consequences, your odds of acting out and not understanding kind of what you do is impacting other people, and even what other people are doing is impacting you. It's interesting. They define EQ as the ability to understand your own emotions and the emotions of others. And particularly people who understand the emotions of other people as well, their resilience goes way, way, way up. And so, so to get on this track, you see there's kind of two tracks. One track kind of goes up, you kind of have a rush, and you come down and crash. The loop there kind of represents the problems you keep doing over and over. And then the other track leads to opportunity, freedom, and self-respect. So to get on that other track there, to opportunity, freedom, self-respect, I had to tear off my labels. I had many of these labels growing up. Failure, druggie, learning disabled, dumb, lazy, rebellious, attitude problem, juvenile delinquent, troublemaker. When you have these labels, it's easy to give up. It's easy to hurt yourself, hurt other people. It's easy to not put effort into life. It's easy to shut down. And what we've learned is we work with children to help them tear off their labels. Their motivation goes up. Their resilience goes up. Nobody likes walking around with labels, and it's really powerful when we sit down with students and I'll draw the outline of a can, and I'll just start filling this can up with their strengths. What I like about myself, what others like about me, my accomplishments, strength, goals, dreams. You can just see the light come right back into these kids as we start focusing on what's right with them, not what's wrong with them. So again, in my own life, I had to tear off my labels. As a child, I was diagnosed ADHD, conduct disorder, learning disabled, and those people who focused on what was right with me made a huge, huge difference in my life. I had to learn how to control my defense mechanisms. When I was in school, the teacher would say, Christian, turn to page 130 and read out loud. I didn't know how to read. So I would swear at the teacher or punch the kid next to me, because I'd much rather be sent to the principal's office for acting out behaviorally than having 30 kids laughing at me because I don't know how to read. Now I realize, why was I doing that? It's because I had no control over my defense mechanisms. And we know a defense mechanism is a bulletproof vest for our feelings. It's what we do to protect ourselves in a pressure situation. I'm using hundreds of defense mechanisms right now. I'm aware I talk a little too fast. I might try to use humor. It's really interesting being online because I'm used to, you hear people laughing or something, but you don't hear that right now. And so we all constantly use defense mechanisms to deal with our environment around us. And the more we understand, again, our own defense mechanisms and emotions and others, we give us a huge resilience advantage. This next one here is what I call the motivational formula. The storms of life will show up. The number one thing we know part of the human condition is we're going to have suffering. We're going to have opposition. It's interesting. Every year people ask me when I'm traveling, they'll say, you're the author of the book, The Resilience Breakthrough. What's the number one thing a person has to have to be resilient? And I always point out to them, the number one thing you have to be resilient. If resilience is the ability to bounce back, you have to have something to bounce back from. You have to have suffering. Until suffering shows up, resilience has never showed up. So the first step of resilience, again, is that opposition. So these storms of life kick in. And when those storms of life kick in, we can take those challenges that we're facing either in a negative direction, where we go into that flood zone, where we're hurting ourselves, our energy dies, we're giving up, hurting other people, or we can take that opposition, that challenge in a positive direction. And one thing that helps us take it into a positive direction is we channel it through these dams. And I won't go into depth, but just plant a few seeds on how to take that suffering and create a productive outcome with it. Is we have to tap into our positive self-talk. We got to focus on what we have control over, and then focus on what we're doing right. I always tell kids, when your head hits the pillow at night, lay there and think about, what did I do right today? How can I do more of that tomorrow? And then the second thing, if everybody, we can do a quick experiment right now, and I'll do this in a room with 1,000 people. Say everybody point to themselves. If everybody points to themselves, most of us, I would say probably 80% of us, are going to be pointing right here to our hearts. And I believe resilience and motivation takes place right here in our hearts. My mind will tell me all the things that are wrong with me, but to be motivated, I got to focus here sometimes and say, hey, I got to believe in myself. I got to push through that opposition. The next one here is you got to tap into a passion, purpose, or interest, is that third dam here. And then that last one is they got to get plugged into a support system. These kids cannot bounce back and thrive on an island. We know part of resilience, human beings are motivated by other human beings. It's that interaction with others that's so important to our resilience. This next picture here is a tribute of my home state of Maryland. If you put a bunch of live crabs in a pot and you don't put a lid on the pot, why can't the crabs get out of the pot? And the students will look at the picture and go, well, duh, the other crabs are reaching up and pulling them down. And I'll say, hey, your friends you're skipping school with, you're doing drugs with, fighting with, all they're doing is they're pulling you down. They're keeping you in the pot. Misery loves company. If I'm hurting, sometimes I want other people to hurt. And we have to, really realize, man, we're all influencing each other constantly. And the ability to understand how we do that, and that we also have the opportunity to pull each other out of that pot, is so important. If you look at this picture, it's kind of like a magic trick, and you blink twice, instead of the crabs pulling each other into the pot, they can also be pushing each other out of the pot. And we know that positive peer support has a huge impact on people's resilience. When your kids or your students are in an environment where they're around really positive friends and connections, we know they thrive, so much more better. Now, each one of these visual pictures, I'll show you in just a minute more in depth, but we reinforce these pictures with music and physical activities. Reason why you see me teaching these resilient skills in a visual delivery system is a school psychologist one day showed me that 80% of the kids I'm doing counseling with, that I'm working with, 80% of these kids are visual learners. Well, I spent 8 years in college, $65,000 doing verbal cognitive intervention with these students. And when I saw, okay, 80% of these kids learn visual, why would we not take the most evidence-based social and emotional education and resilience and life skills and deliver them in a multimedia delivery system? So everything we do, the child visually sees it, they hear it in music they listen to, and then we have hundreds of physical activities, art activities. I'll say, draw me a picture of what your life would be like if you stayed in this pot. Draw me a picture of what life would be like when you got out of this pot. Create a collage about that. So we try to use as much of the arts as we possibly can to reinforce the visual metaphors. And then by doing that, when kids are dealing with stuff day to day in life, often the times they'll say, hey, man, when you taught me that lesson, I really wasn't into it, or I didn't really apply it right then, but when I needed it, man, I've never forgotten that picture of the crabs in the pot because of the music we did, the art activity. And I've literally had thousands of kids express that to me over the years. And that's the power of teaching it in that multimedia delivery system that just stays with us. This is a simple problem-solving model. We have them write in there into the hurdle, whatever the problem is, and we just walk them through. They have to identify the problem, create options, get help, take action, believe in change, and jump back up. This is kind of interesting. This is a maze that takes them like 20 minutes to get through this maze. And I'll say, to get through this maze, you have to have the desire to do it. You have to put the time in. You have to put the effort in. Every year I speak to lots of students, and often we'll say, what will take you further in life, hard work or being smart? And often, the kids will yell, being smart will take me way further in America than hard work. And I'll often explain to them, actually, in America, hard work will take you much further than just academic smarts. But these kids have been socialized the opposite of this their entire lives. So I really take the time to help them understand that as they go through these these words, desire, time, and effort, and they really put that effort in, something kicks in at the end of this maze. When you're about to finish the maze, what we'll do sometimes is we'll take the maze away from the students, and they'll be like, hey, let me finish my maze. And I'll say, why do you want to finish this maze so bad? And they'll say, well, I've been working at it for the last 20 minutes. And I'll say, what you're experiencing is the accomplishment zone. There, when you're at that top of that T, you're just about to finish it there at the end of effort. And, that accomplishment zone is how you feel will be how you feel when they hand you your high school diploma. It's how you feel when you accomplish something, when you put hard work and effort into something, like, in 15, 20 more minutes, I'm going to experience the accomplishment zone because I'm trying the hardest I can to communicate this message. It's just a built-in thing in our world, is when you apply hard work, desire, time, and effort, you'll feel that sense of accomplishment. They have to lift society's laws and rules. They have to get plugged into a support system. When I first work with students, they have usually one or less of these: a parent or caregiver, a positive friend, a teacher, counselor, school official, a positive mentor, or something that inspires and motivates you to do good. My goal is they get plugged into at least 3 of these, because if you don't have at least 3 of these, you're 70 times more likely to drop out of school, to give up. Human beings, again, are motivated by other human beings. We teach something where inner motivation comes from, or the inner motivation to be resilient, we know comes from relationships. We teach something called relational resilience. And that's where you go through the motions. You don't give up because another person needs you and you need them. That interdependence motivates us to push through. For example, I have 2 kids, Cooper and Carson. If I never got invited to speak again, I would go work at 4 different fast food restaurants because they need me, I need them. That increases my resilience. So the more people who are dependent on us, not dependent, but dependent on, does that make sense, on each other, not codependence, but where we need another human being, we're much, much more likely to, the more of that we have, we're more likely to push through and not give up. When I speak at prisons a lot, and I'll ask inmates, write down 3 or 4 people that are completely dependent on you and you're dependent on them. Most inmates will write down 1 or less. When we ask teachers that question, oftentimes, they'll write down, 10 or more people. And so it makes a huge difference to your resilience when you have those interpersonal connections, those relationships. There's an incredible amount of research around that. And then again, the last picture sums it up. Often when we first work with many of these students, they're standing right here next to this wall, but our goal is they learn how to stop crashing, tear off their labels, as they get these specific 10 skills of resilience. What's exciting about it is we can look at their GPA, their test scores before they go through these skills, their GPA and test scores after they go through these skills. We can see their level of engagement. And frankly, these are the tools I needed to get through college. I was never going to be able to get through school, have an opportunity for higher education without having access to some real evidence-based social and emotional education and some resilience tools. Let me just give you a quick example of what a lesson plan looks like with one of these here. I'm going to do, let's do this. Let's do tearing off labels here. So we're going to take this metaphor of tearing off labels here. And so you can do this in a group setting, you can do this one-on-one in a group setting. So I'll just say to the students, circle any of these labels that you have. And many of the kids I work with will circle, 3 or 4 of these labels or more. And it's interesting. I'll say, do you have any other labels? The one word they give me will usually give me more information why maybe they're failing, they're disengaged, they don't think college is an option for them. That one word, they just label themselves something, and I'll just sit there with them and just say, hey, these labels have come from outside of you. You're not these labels. As a child, I was diagnosed, I shared with you ADHD. I have symptoms of ADHD, but I'm not ADHD. I'm Christian Moore. Does that make sense? Those are just symptoms. If somebody has a torn knee ligament, they're not known as torn knee ligament, but if somebody has ADHD, they carry that label for the rest of their life, or a learning disability or conduct disorder. If you have a hemorrhoid, they don't call you hemorrhoid the rest of your life. I'm being funny there. But what I'm saying is we deal with emotional and mental health challenges completely different than we deal with physical challenges. And we've got to really, really help take these labels off of students for sure. And then I'll take the piece of paper, I'll turn the paper over. On the backhand side of the paper, I'll draw the outline of a can, and I'll just fill up this can with their strengths. And then I'll just walk them through those steps, identify, you know, how is your label working for you? What labels do you have that are getting in the way of your opportunities? We have to do something different. We have to focus on our strengths. We'll just walk them through that lesson plan there. And one of the physical activities that we'll do with this one is we'll take a can of, like, say, why, you know, lima beans. Why lima beans? We can throw them away, and we'll cut the bottom of the lid of the can off with a clean edge can opener, and we'll fill up the inside of the can with like Starburst, and then we'll crazy glue the lid back on the can. And then I'll literally, you know, I'll put the labels. I'll have the kids fill out. So there's a blank label on the outside of the can. We'll have them put their strengths on one side, their negative labels. And I'll have them rip off their negative labels. And then I'll hand them a can opener. I'll say, be really careful as you open up the can. And they'll open up the can really carefully. I'll say, there's tomato paste in here. Don't spill it on the floor. They'll open up the can. Inside the can is the Starburst. And I'll say the Starburst represent the real you. Our outward actions and behaviors put these labels on us, but that's not the real you. So they physically experience something. They visually see it. And then we want them to hear it in music. And let me pull up here. Why we use music in a program like this. There's a study from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. They have found that listening to music is students' #1 non-related school activity. 87% of 13 to 17-year-olds are reporting to listening to music after school. 2/3 name music as a hobby. Adolescents spend between 4 and 5 hours a day listening to and or watching music videos. And it's interesting. This current generation is actually spending 8 to 12 hours a day engaged with media, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, all this social media stuff. They're spending 8 to 12 hours. And I can promise you, since COVID, that was before COVID, I can't even imagine what these numbers are now. But that's one of the reasons we try to teach everything in a multimedia delivery system. So everything we do, the child visually sees it, they hear it in music, they physically do it. American teenagers listen to an estimated 10,500 hours of rock music between the 7th and 12th grades, just 500 fewer hours than they spend in school over 12 years. And, you know, rap hip hop music outsells rock and roll. So you see those statistics there is, you know, even much higher with that. And then 90% of students report knowing many or all the lyrics to their favorite songs. So about 20 years ago, I'd walk a child through the visual metaphor, and then I would play a song for them, and they would light up like a Christmas tree, because kind of their life story is kind of written around the visual metaphor, and then the music reinforces it. So let me give you an example with Tearing Off Labels. Here's a song that goes with Tearing Off Labels. So I'll just play a quick example of this for you here.
A label can be good or bad, it just depends if it comes from society or real friends. And if you don't like them, you can take them off. And if they've been on too long, you could break them off. Cause all white people ain't racist, and no, all blacks ain't got the same faces. We won't feel compassion if we remain faceless. Gotta deal with the past so we can't erase this. And I know we can't help it, but it's the one thing that we really need help with. We too selfish, and we don't wanna step out the comfort zone. Cause it's not comfort when my pain is what your comfort zone. We shouldn't judge a book by its cover. Arrest, convict the judge, crooks by their color. Cause our hearts all work the same. A shame that we all don't hurt the same. You are greater than the words you hear, greater than the things you fear. It's not clear now, but one day you'll be able to break free and tear off the labels. You are greater than the words you hear, greater than the things you fear. It's not clear now, but one day you'll be able to break free and tear off the labels. I remember like it was yesterday. Then I paused for a second, was it just today? Now it's only us today. And it's so hard to say goodbye to my guy, and I really know the reason why. I used to wanna be just like him, he had it all. The grades, the girls, beautiful pictures on the wall. And a personality that was flawless, really no choice but to succeed when having all this. 2 parents at home, college scouts on the phone. Even in the midst of crowds, he would feel alone. And I never understood till I got the call. It's too much pressure, I'm ending it all. I said, man, that ain't the thing to do, cause there's a lot of people that would kill to be you. He just said, yeah, I bet, but I haven't even been me yet. You are greater than the words you hear, greater than the things you fear. It's not clear now, but one day you'll be able to break free and tear off the labels. You are greater than the words you hear, greater.
So if anybody out there likes this music, that's not good. That means the students won't like it. We did something kind of radical in Why Try It. We wanted to make sure that the kids are into it. If the kid isn't into it, the intervention is not going to be as effective. And so you can see that question, you know, there. Any of these, you can stop the lyrics anywhere and say, you know, what did the lyric mean when he says, you know, I'm going to tear off the labels and show the world who I really am, or whatever the lyric is. We'll talk about that. And so, again, the student visually sees it. They hear it in music they listen to. We have discussion questions that tie to the music and hundreds of physical activities and art activities to reinforce it. In the last 22 years, we put over 3 million students through these metaphors, and we saw a lot of success with a lot of kids, help thousands and thousands of children graduate, go to college, thrive in college. But there's still too many kids we could teach the skills of resilience all day long, which is very important. But we started realizing we also have to teach them where the inner motivation comes from to apply those skills. I'd read hundreds of books on resilience. They would tell me the attributes of resilience: hard work, determination, perseverance. But I wanted to know, where does resilience come from within? And so I just want to take you through a real quick formula. I'm going to take about 6 minutes and just take you through a formula of resilience. The first thing you have to be resilient is you have to have something to bounce back from. And in America today, we have no shortage of things we all have to bounce back from. I do want to point out, with what's going on right now in this great country, is we are already resilient. If there's anything we've learned, is that resilience is already within all of us. And I think all of us in the last 4 or 5 months have learned and seen our own personal resilience in coping with this very difficult situation in this country. And so before even COVID hit, we knew resilience is within all of us. We all have it. And what we realize is, to pull it out, the skills of resilience can literally be taught. So the first thing you have to have is, when you see the suffering show up, you have to be able to, we do something called flip the switch question. We have to ask ourselves, how do I take that suffering and create a productive outcome with it? That's kind of the entryway to being resilient. Is we have the suffering, and then we ask ourselves, how can I use that? For example, I was told I couldn't go to college because of my learning disabilities, my nonstop speaking, my ADHD. Today I make a living because of my ADHD, my nonstop speaking. And so I had to flip the switch. I had to say, okay, this is who I am. I have to start where I am in the reality of my challenges, whether it's my disabilities or whatever is unique about me. I have to create a productive outcome with those things. And that's what resilient people do, is they don't see the problem as a deficit. They start to see the problem as an opportunity. And so, so the first thing we have to do that is, we have to flip the switch. We have to ask ourselves, how do I use this pain as my best friend? How do I use this as motivation? We call that the resilience question, kind of the intro to resilience. And then the second thing we have to do is, if you have suffering show up, if we have challenges in our life and we have suffering, the one thing we know for sure we're going to have is negative emotions. And people always ask me all the time, they'll say, Christian, what's the most powerful thing you've learned? You've gone 7 million miles around this planet. You've met millions of people. What's the most powerful thing? What's the last thing you would teach your 2 kids, Cooper and Carson? I would teach them this concept right here, that part of being human is we wake up in the morning and we have like 45,000 different emotions during the day. Some of those emotions are going to be positive. Some of those emotions are going to be negative. And I use, with students, I use a metaphor of a battery to explain this. I'll say, can you charge a battery with just a positive connection? They'll say no. I'll say, can you charge a battery with just a negative? They'll say no. We all know a battery charges because of the combination between the positive and the negative. For example, in my life, and this is the most powerful thing I've learned about resilience, in my life, I didn't grow up with a lot of happiness, peace, motivation, love, and acceptance. I even have something called reactive attachment disorder, because both my parents have mental health issues. You attach to your parents. Until Mama Jackson came into my life, I didn't really understand that love, that connection and all that. That's not a skill my parents could bring to the table. So for me to thrive, I've had to have people show me what to do with my anger, my fear, those things in blue on the right: regret, loneliness, depression, anxiety. I've dealt with anxiety my whole life. So I have to create a productive outcome with my anxiety. So I walk with my anxiety. Every day I talk to my anxiety. When my anxiety shows up, I say, okay, you and me, we're going to go give this speech together. You know, my anxiety is not going to jump off my shoulder. So we got to thrive together. We're going to walk hand in hand with the reality of this suffering, this pain. And so the ability, you see, all emotions create energy. Whether an emotion is positive or negative, it's going to give us an energy. And the ability to tap into both positive and negative emotions gives you a massive resilience advantage. And there's no law in the universe that says you cannot take a negative emotion and create a productive outcome. Now, of course, for children, I wish 90% of their emotions were positive and 10% were negative. But many youth and families who are dealing with trauma, abuse, difficulties in their lives, many of their emotions are going to be negative. So as a therapist, if I can't show them how to create a productive outcome with a negative emotion, we're not going to get really far in the resilience process. So one of the birthplaces of resilience is knowing how to create a productive outcome with the negative emotion. Now, it's one thing to tell people we want you to tap into both your positive and negative emotions, but where does the motivation come from to do that? And the first one I've already highlighted for you is that relational resilience, where you go through the motions, you don't give up because another person needs you, you need them. Now, this is a picture of my two kids, Cooper and Carson. So when I'm not motivated and I don't have that resilience, I focus on them. And that's one of the places internally my resilience comes from. The next place resilience comes from is something called street resilience. And that is where you take any type of disrespect, past mistake, and use it as fuel to propel you forward. So you take the pain of disrespect, social inequality. And right now in America, we are seeing massive examples of street resilience where people feel their identities coming under attack, people feeling attacked, and they say, because of this, I'm going to try to become a greater human being. It's resilience. When we do that non-violently, that's resilience. When we say, hey, we're going to create a productive outcome with this disrespect. Again, I was told I couldn't go to college. I was told never would I be able to write a book. They said, well, you can self-publish a book, but you won't get a book nationally published. So when they told me I couldn't do that, I used that as motivation. So instead of writing a book in 1 year, I got tremendous help from incredible people, and I took 4 years because that was the reality of what I had to do to make sure I had that high of a quality of a book. And so when someone tells me I can't do something, I use that as motivation. And it's not about them. It's about just being a motivation for me. You know, I love the story of Michael Phelps. He's going for the 12th gold medal. He's tired. He's swimming down there, but he has to win by 1/10 of a second. So he would imagine in his head, everybody here does not want me to win this 12th gold medal. And because he had to do whatever he had to do to just hit that wall 1/10 of a second faster. And that's just a powerful, powerful example of street resilience. And we're seeing, again, we're American history. When I speak around the world about street resilience, people pull me aside and go, wow, that is a highly American concept. You guys literally are doing this constantly. You convert the pain to the energy to create productive outcomes. You direct your hurt and anger towards a cause rather than an individual. And then just some incredible people, you know, Nelson Mandela, a powerful example of street resilience. Rosa Parks refusing to sit on the back of the bus. You know, one day if someone would have told me, you know, the mom who helped raise me would get that award, I would have told you there's no way under the blue sky. So that's definitely a highlight of my life and so on. And because of time, I'm going to jump back over here to the third place. Actually, because of time, I'm just going to teach you the last two real quick so you have them just verbally there. Something called resource resilience. And that means you just maximize the resources available to you. See, all any of us can do is be as resilient as possible with the amount of money we do or do not have in the bank, who our bosses, who our spouses, the challenges our kids are having, how good our car is or isn't. What I love about resilience is it has nothing to do with success. It's just thriving in where you are in the reality of your mental health, the reality of your abilities, your talents, where you are. That's all any of us can do. And so, for example, my ADHD, my conduct disorder, you know, those are the things I've had to be able to channel in productive ways. And then the last one is rock bottom resilience. And that's when you have every reason to give up. You're literally sitting in a rock bottom position, and you decide to do basically what I said a few minutes ago, is flip that switch. The ability to say to yourself, how can I use this rock bottom moment is the greatest moment in my life. No teacher, counselor, or social worker could get rid of my learning disabilities, the challenges in my home life, the challenges in my neighborhood. I needed a great educator to show me where that inner motivation comes from and have those skills. It's the combination of those two things coming together. It's those visual skills that I showed you in combination with knowing how to flip the switch, how to channel my negative emotions in productive ways, the ability to ask myself that question, how do I use this problem as my best friend? And then tapping into these 4 sources of resilience. And I know I just gave you a whole bunch of information really, really fast. And I doing this so fast, I wish I had another hour to spend time with you guys. What I spend a lot of time doing and my team does, we spend a ton of time just right now, especially during COVID and all this, is just doing demos, sharing this with administrators, with your administrators, teachers, just giving an overview of the stuff we're talking about, the research, the history. We've been doing this for 22 years. And if anybody's interested in doing something like that, if you want to set up a demo to get this off the ground, let me just pull this up right here. Feel free to go to this right here, ytry.org, schedule demo there. Feel free to go to that, and we'll set up a demo where we'll give an overview. Also, if you're interested in me doing a presentation to your teachers, your staff, your counselors, just showing this model, when you set up the demo and you coordinate with them, you can say, hey, Christian mentioned, I know in the first 2 weeks of the month here of August, I'm giving away like 10 free, just 1 hour presentations. So if you want to grab one of those quick, you could get one of those scheduled as well. And then what else I have for you? And then also, it's been really exciting. The past couple months, last several years, we created a resilient parenting guide, because parents were like, Christian, we need these resilient skills ourselves. We'd love to teach these to our kids. Would you please work on something? So we put together a family resilience guide, a parenting guide for parents, and with tons of activities similar to how we teach YTry, that engages the whole family in learning resilience. And we have over 50,000 families right now using this, and we're giving it away for free. So if you just go to ytry.org, or when you set up the demo, you can talk to the person helping you there, and it's for free. You just go to ytry.org, and you'll see it there on our homepage. And if you also want to hear me talk a lot more, I have, I guess now 14 hours of podcasting on there. You can go to our podcast there on our homepage as well. And we have some incredible people. Actually, tomorrow I'm going to be interviewing Aaron Gurrell from Freedom Riders is going to be on with me. I just had Daryl Scott from Rachel's Challenge is the last one. Incredible Judge Teskey, incredible people in mental health, education, and just some amazing people. So do not miss the podcast. And, I just want to emphasize resilience is within all of us. And, I'd rather my 2 kids, Cooper and Carson, have the ability to bounce back from life's lows than being just successful. Success is fleeting. Success, it comes, it goes, it comes, it goes. But the ability to be resilient is much more long lasting, and you're more likely to have success over a longer period of time if you have resilience. I know my time is up. I think I have maybe 5 minutes for questions here. If anybody has any questions, I'd love to answer them.
Hey, Christian, will you go to the next slide just for the keyword?
Oh, okay. Oh, the next slide for the keyword here is, there you go.
Voter and is just independent. People are asking for that.
Yeah, if there's a question or two out there, I'd be more than happy to answer. I don't know if Sydney's getting any of those or our time is up or whatever. So let me know.
So the reoccurring one I saw in the chat during this was just people asking for you to post the slides in the files section of the website so they can refer back to them and use the links you have in there for the video and all the label stuff as well.
Yeah, most of this they can get to it at ytry.org, WHYTRY. And then Hans might have, did you have something else there you would want to add, Hans?
No, just kind of going back to the same thing. If they're wanting more information, a lot of the slides that Christian's sharing are slides that are part of what's in our program materials. And so for most of the stuff, like the video of the music, if you wanted full access to that, you would have to get access to our program. We do have some free resources, like a free lesson plan, if you want to try one of those out. And probably the best thing you could do if you're just looking for more information or you want more resources on this is go to that schedule a demo link and have one of our program directors get with you. They can answer questions and get you access to whatever you're going to need access to.
And then Libby has her hand raised for something, I assume, for a
There's a couple
question.
hand
I'm
raised.
sure.
Yeah. There was one question here. Is this only online? No, it's actually both. In fact, it's commonly used in live settings way more than online, but we do have actual lessons directly created specifically for virtual classroom delivery.
So if you guys who have your hand raised, if one of you guys wants to unmute and ask your question, then we can try to have them answer it.
Can they unmute themselves or do we have to unmute them?
You're right. That's true. Okay. If you guys want to type it in the chat, then we can look at it. I don't think they have audio permissions.
Jared asked is it a CD or downloads? Everything that's accessed through a website. So you have kind of a subscription where you can access all the program materials. Again, if you want to schedule a demo, a program director will take you through and show you how to do all of that. How it works, how to access the lessons, you know, kind of how the program tools are delivered.
So I'm seeing, do you have content that can be used in a health science program? And then can you buy the curriculum to use in class?
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a lot of health teachers that use our curriculum as they teach social emotional skills. I think it has huge application in a science area where you're looking at human psychology, human development, where inner motivation comes from, what enables people to thrive. So we look at the whole person in a science. It has huge application. Maybe they're asking, is this taught there? The answer is yes, and we have lesson plans that are across the board. They're used in all different subject matters, but there's a huge impact in science. Absolutely.
Yeah. And what was the other question, Sydney, that you had mentioned?
Can you buy the curriculum to use in class? Or is that the one you guys just answered?
Yeah, so we have a curriculum set that you can buy, and that's where you probably want to schedule a demo where a program director can kind of go through pricing and show you how. They'll basically do an assessment with you to kind of understand what your setting is and how, kind of what you're looking for, what your needs are, and then they can suggest what would be the best approach. But yes, there's a curriculum, a full set of tools, and everything that you can use to teach this. Looks like everybody was asking just questions about session code and that stuff. Most of that's good.
How can they get access and or set up the demo?
So again, I'll type it back in here in the chat window.
I have it on the thing right now. I have it on the screen.
/schedule-demo.
Yes, and make sure you complete the survey using the code and the ID to make sure you receive credit for your time today.
Yep. I think I might have jumped in on you there, Hans. It's whytry.org/schedule demo. Yeah.
Schedule-demo. Don't forget the hyphen.
Yeah, schedule-demo.
And we have about 2 minutes before it kicks us. So I guess this one last question.
All right.
That's a good question here to Kayla. Is it integrated as a course throughout school year, a workshop, etc.? That's a really good question. There's actually a lot of different ways that can be used, and there's a lot of flexibility within it. It's used as a course. It's used as kind of a toolkit for teachers and counselors, you know, in brief interventions. It could be used as like a once a week social emotional learning lesson in combination with any academic subject. And so, yeah, you've got a lot of different options on how it can be delivered. And again, the best way to kind of see all of that would be to schedule a demo. We can show you how all that works. Free demo, doesn't cost anything. And our program director, one of our program directors will kind of walk you through and just show you what the materials look like, how it works, and you can kind of see the details there.
Well, I appreciate all those that joined us. That was awfully nice of you. And just remember, resilience is already inside of you. We just got to keep pulling it out.
I think it's going to cut it off in about 30 seconds.
All right. Hey,
Well, hang
thanks,
on.
thanks for all you guys are doing for students.
Good luck with this school year. This is going to be a challenging and awesome experience for all of us.
Yep. So we got to do what's in the best interest of kids. We all got to get out there and fight the fight. You guys are all my heroes. Thank you for all you're doing for students across this country, man. You guys are all essential workers. That's for sure. Thank you, guys.
Keyword is independent. Kimberly.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Nice.